what you do as far as closing the organ, not closing the organ, whatever. My attitude has always been, you can't wreck anything. So if it's open, it invites people to play it. And I love it when people play the organ. They can't wreck it. The only reason to close it is to keep, in my mind, is to keep dust off it. And it's a decision you have to make. Some people say, this is my personal private instrument and I don't want anybody else playing it except me. That's the way some people feel. I feel, get on that instrument. Anybody who wants to try to play it, have at it. So the music rack will be up. So you'll just undo the roll top, and depending on your height, you may want to adjust the music rack. I always want to adjust the music rack. For me, I bring it about down to here, and the way you do it, and it's kind of noisy, but the way you do it is there's levers back here, and you squeeze them, and it comes down. And then you just line it up to where you want it. There's a woman where I play who she's really short, and she doesn't play her pedals, and she just does pistons. She doesn't care if she can see any of this. So she has her music rack really low. I want to be able to see that there, so I put it about here. You can also move it forward. Oh, so we need to readjust this. This will move forward and backwards. So we will unscrew these screws. We'll readjust this, but this can pull forward and backwards. All right. So here's a question. How many of you are pianists who don't play pedals? And that's quite all right. Okay. So what you will do is you will hook your feet. There's a bar back here. You can hook your feet on that bar. Okay. But for those of us who do play pedals, we want the bench to be at a height where we can comfortably have our heel on a white key, our toe on a black key, and we have no strain. I sat on an organ bench that was too high until I sat on my first adjustable one, and I thought, this is amazing. To sit on the proper height bench feels so much better. So you will want to adjust the bench. And I would say that the polite thing would be, when you leave the organ, leave the bench the way you used it, and the next person can adjust it the way they want it. But the polite thing on these shoes is to do what is called close. So I'm going to turn the organ on, and every organ has a power switch in a different place. Power switch is over here. This is just like a computer. You turn it on, and you wait. You know how your computer, you don't touch anything until it's on? Same thing here. This is saying Rodgers. It's on when the music rack lights, when the window lights, when the pedal board lights, you know it's ready to go. I'm going to do what I call the left to right introduction to the organ. And so I'm treating it as though you've never done this before. On some organs, the way you turn the sound on is with tabs that look like this. On this organ, the way you turn your sounds on is by pulling, these are called draw knobs. So you pull it out, it lights up, and the window opens up. We'll talk about that later. But what you have here, these are called divisions. This is the pedal division. These affect the stops for your feet. This is the swell. This is the swell manual. So these stops here turn on sounds for this keyboard. Way over here, these are the great, and this is this manual. The choir is this manual. Home bass is great. Great is, this is like, if you just had a one manual organ, it would be this one, would be the great. So you've got your draw knobs, that's how you turn the sounds on. These here, some stops are speaking stops and some are non-speaking stops. So I would invite you, when you come and just play all by yourself, to listen. When you do this, I would open, you'll see this as I move the left shoe. You see that move? It's as though when you have your shades, when it's like this, the shades are like this. And when you have the shoe all the way open, it's opening the shades all the way. When you come and just try experiment and say, what are all these sounds? I'd say have them open all the way. You'll notice I didn't do the right one. The right one is a crescendo pedal, and what it does is it gradually adds stops. So as I put this down, I have no stops on. And I would say in general, leave your foot off the crescendo pedal. Don't use the crescendo pedal. Maybe Christmas, the last time you're doing, you might want to open it all the way. But rarely would you need to use your crescendo pedal because you will have in your pistons that same kind of transition from adding stops. And some people treat that like a volume pedal. It's not a volume pedal. It adds and subtracts stops. So I've had people call me and say, the organ's making sounds and I don't have any stops on it. It's because their crescendo pedal is down a little bit. Anyway, I would recommend that you go through, and I'll just start on the swell here, and listen to each stop. And I don't want that one. So I want this thing over here is cancel. This 0 turns everything off. So I want to hear this. You got all these qualities of sounds. The red ones are reeds. How many of you don't know what the numbers stand for? Okay, great. You see on these stops, you'll see numbers 16, 8, 4, 2, Roman numerals, and fractions. Once again, home base is 8. So if you have an 8-foot stop, it means this 8-foot principle. Let's see, where am I? Middle C. Alex, this is your 8-foot one. And that's 8 feet tall there, right? The tenor C? Yes. Okay. That pipe is an 8-foot tall pipe. I'm going to play it at middle C. If I went to a 4-foot stop and played middle C, that pipe is half as long. It's up an octave. Try to get a 2-foot, it's up an octave. And that's the fun thing about playing organ, is you can sound pretty impressive just by playing an 8-foot, a 4-foot, and a 2-foot, and all you've done is added pipe lengths. You have families of instruments. Principal is the body of the organ, is your principal. Well, the other family would be flutes, and these are completely different. Here's that principal. So I suggest that you go through these and listen and see what you have. Some of you might not care. You might say, I'm just going to use what she put on there, and that's all I'm going to do. But you might want to go through and try each stop and see what it sounds like. So you've got all these different stops. I didn't say what a Roman numeral was. An 8-foot, 4-foot, 2-foot. This Roman numeral is a Roman numeral 4. It's called a mixture, and if you had pipes, when you have an 8-foot stop, you've got, each one of these is its own pipe. So each one of them is its own pipe. If I put on this Roman numeral, that has a Roman numeral 4. There's actually 4 pipes sounding at one time, but they're very high pitches, and it's hard to tell what they are. But when I turn this on, I'm going to play middle C, and you say, that's not middle C. You'd never play a mixture by itself, but what you would do is you'd build, this is called a principal chorus. So sometimes in your music, it'll call for a principal chorus or a flute chorus. So a principal chorus would be an 8, a 4, a 2, and that adds that brilliance. That's what the Roman numerals are. Well, the fractions, there's a 2 2/3 and a 1 3/5. If I played middle C on this 8-foot, if I played it on 2 2/3, it's not even a C. Bum, ba, but it's way up there. It's a 5th, it's way up there. So it's like I'm playing that. You say, when would I use that? Well, an 8-foot with that 2 2/3 is really quite beautiful. And it's so subtle. It's beautiful. The 1 1/3, anybody guess what that is? Do. Can you hum that pitch? It is an E. It is an E. So you've got this, it's that E way up there. Okay, same thing. Yeah. So those are called mutations. The fractions are called mutations. And they're meant to be played as a solo with, sometimes you'll see a cornet in the music. There's a cornet. A cornet is when you've got an 8-foot with either 2 2/3 or 1 3/5. You can also add the 4-foot in there. It's just a really beautiful sound. All right, so you go through all of those, and I think the reeds, the red ones, I've been doing this since 1988. And my experience with people and reeds is at first they don't like them. They're kind of nasal, and they think they're just kind of ugly. And after a while you go, these are really cool. Yeah. But there's different kinds of reeds. The oboe, when you say oboe, this is not an orchestral oboe. It's actually a pipe that has a reed in it. And it's, like I say, it's very nasal. So here's this oboe. As opposed to a flute. And that's typically, you'd play it as a solo, but sometimes it can fit in with an ensemble too. The oboe is your quietest reed. Then you have a trumpet. I didn't start playing organ until I was in my early 30s, and when I got to an organ, I saw a trumpet. I was expecting to hear brass. And it's a reed. So you see trumpet, and it's, once again, nasal. That's one of the trumpets. Here's another one of them. And another one over here, and this is quite bold. Great solo instrument. And then down in the pedal, you got they're really cool. Nasal, biting. I think I've covered everything you'll see here except the celestes. The celestes, if you had a pipe organ, that's an Erzähler celeste, and it has a Roman numeral 2 by it. It's 2 pipes that are playing simultaneously, and they're slightly out of tune on purpose. Celeste, like celestial. So it's this heavenly sound. This Erzähler celeste sounds like this, and I'm going to play it very quietly. So it's heavenly, it's just this. I wouldn't use it in hymn playing. I'd use it in preludes. I'd use it in nice quiet things. Okay, up here there's a flute celeste. Okay, so we talked about the draw knobs, talked about pipe lengths, 8/4/2, mixtures, mutations, and reeds. Speaking stops and non-speaking stops. Over here, anything that you turn on is going to make a sound. Same thing here, same thing here. Okay. Here, these are called couplers. And what the couplers do is they take, this says great to pedal. If I had nothing on the organ and put on the great to pedal, you'd hear nothing. If I put on a sound for the great manual and play my pedal, nothing's going to happen. If I put on great to pedal, it takes that sound and moves it down. So it couples it from here to here. It doesn't make it go away here. It's still there, but it couples it down. So swell to pedal does the same thing. Anything I have had set here brings it to the pedal. Choir brings it to the pedal. This is swell to great. So anything that I have on the swell, let's say if I did this, I've got a principal chorus, 8/4/2. I'm going to open this up. Over here, I'll do an 8/4 and a 2. If I put on the swell to great, it's going to take this and also make it sound here. If I put on the choir to great, anything that I have on the choir, if I put that on, it's going to put on the swell to great, it's going to bring this. That's why this is home base, because I can couple from here to here, from here to here. And I can couple any of those down to here. The one I didn't cover is swell to choir, brings anything on this keyboard down to this keyboard. Okay, what we haven't covered here is this window. When you turn the organ on, actually, I think before I do this, I'm going to talk about these because these are affected by the window. You see all these buttons here, and these buttons are called pistons, and they are very logical once they're explained. Here you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are called general pistons, and they affect the whole organ. I have saved some things in here for you, so if you put on number 1, you'll see lights come on all over the place. I have set things up so they're ready for you to play, and just so you know, I always do number 1, so it's the quietest thing. When I started playing in here downstairs, I started on number 1. And I had my shoes closed, and I went. So you know you have something nice and safe to play quiet on number 1. I've got a nice solo here. You'll see I've got that cornet. I'm using those, and if I go to number 2, completely different. And what I did here was I programmed, Doreen and I kind of talked about this a little bit. This is the way I do the responsorial psalm. I gave a workshop here like in about 1902 or something. Oh. Back when I was 1. Okay. And we talked about, my parish was St. John's in Grafton. So that's where I was forever and ever. And I moved to Minneapolis in 2017. Anyway, the way my wonderful pastor, Father Dale, wanted us to do the psalm was to introduce the melody by itself so people could just hear that melody clearly, not worry about the accompaniment. So I'd introduce the melody, then the cantor would sing it quietly, and then everybody would sing it, and I did that. Okay, so I've got number 2 ready for you if you choose to do this, where I'm going to introduce the melody on the swell. Then the cantor. Whoops, I did not mean to do the harp. I must have covered that up. I meant to have the harp here. Yeah, I want to get rid of that harp. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, cantor's turn. Is that loud enough for the cantor? Okay, then the assembly. Is that loud enough for the assembly? Okay, so then when the cantor sings the verses, they'd be here. The assembly, introduce it there. Sometimes I might play that descant. If the people are singing well, I'll throw that descant in. Okay, number 3, still talking about that these are generals. I've got your psalm ready to go here. Number 3 is ready if you ever want to. You heard me play that harp. The harp is sitting ready for you on number 3. And that is down in this manual. And the way I used that today when I was playing this morning, do you know Panis Angelicus? Okay, so I had the traditional Panis Angelicus, but I just kind of made up my own thing, and I was going, yeah. Whatever. So I was playing an accompaniment with my left hand and then using that oboe there. It's something, and Father came up. There's 2 priests in the church, and the pastor didn't happen to be presiding at that. He was helping. Right after communion, I'm playing, and he came over to me and he said, I had them playing that harp, and he said, "Thank you for being here." It was just so nice. He loves it when I play that harp. Then I was playing the handbells, all that stuff. Okay, for what I did there was, if you're doing some Baroque music and you want just an 8 and a 2, that's a very clean sound. If I put the 4 foot in there, I've got an 8 and a 2. It's fine, but sometimes that 8 and the 2 are just really nice together. And 5, I don't remember. Oh, yes. So this, I just did something a little more, it's just pretty. I'm using celeste over here, celeste over here. I brought that celeste from the swell down to here. And in the grade, I've got Now, some people say they never ever use tremulant. I would not use tremulant when I'm playing a hymn, but I actually like it on these organs because it's mild. That same sound right there. Do you hear? So you can experiment with the tremulant, but unless you're doing some gospel hymn, we Catholics don't use tremulants on hymns, period. Okay.
So that sucks. You grew up using tremolo, and Presbyterians sing them very well. So I would, well, unless Father tell me not to.
Well, it depends.
I would try it on Holy, Holy, Holy. I would try it on.
Oh, okay. You guys can duke it out. Duke it out. Because I would use it on an Easter one. If it's a God, I would consider on Holy Holy on How Great Thou Art. I wouldn't do it. Yeah. If it's a gospel style, I'd use trem, but I wouldn't use it in a Catholic church on traditional hymnody. Some people say, and I don't necessarily agree, because I've been in all kinds of churches where they can sing hymns with trems on, but you know how trems go like this, then you say, what pitch am I supposed to be singing at? Well, they can kind of find it. But as I say, you can duke it out. You can decide here what kind of... Yeah.
What the tremolo does, or we call it vibrato, same kind of say, is that it warms the tone up. You know, it makes a very warm...
It does warm up the tone, but there's a place for it. And I would say in traditional hymnody, probably not. Yeah. And that's a discussion you can have amongst yourselves and decide amongst you whether you want to do that. But I would say your traditional, Holy God, we praise thy name, etc. Well, I'll give you an example. So let's take, I'll go here. And we've got the pedal in there. Pedal. I'm going to turn the trems on. So it does warm it up. It does warm it up. But I would say in traditional Catholic singing, we wouldn't use the trems. And I'm being pretty general here when I'm saying we. So you heard me play the Little Mortal. It's just another place to play a solo.
That ask a question. The pedals, there's only two, but there's three levels. So which shoe controls the middle?
Good question. And this is standard for a pipe organ. The left one controls the grate, the choir, and the pedal. The middle one controls the solo. Yeah, the swell. Yes. If you are using any time in your playing, especially if you're playing a solo melody, experiment with moving your hand up or down an octave. So I will take, I'll do this. Solven. But key my in. Okay, I could do. You can do any of those things. Same thing with this oboe. So experiment. If you're playing a melody that you can get so much variety just by moving where your hands are. This is a really nice feature right here. This one that says next. How many of you are actually playing for Mass? Most of you? Great, good. Okay, let's look at one of those hymns. On your old organ, you didn't have a lot of flexibility. How many of you are already comfortable changing stops from verse to verse? Cool. Okay. So let's say this is building. You've got eights and fours. This adds the twos. This adds the mixers. Okay, so let's say I'm at the end of this verse and I'm on number 7. Okay, so you didn't hear a change, right? Here's 7. Okay. we never want to hear that change. We always want to breathe during the change. So if you're on this, if we're going 1, 2. That makes sense? Well, you can move your hand up there and do this, or right here it says next. And that'll, pardon, it says next. Next. So if you're at number 7 and you wanted to switch to number 8, you could hit that next or hit number 8. So it just goes to the next piston. Watch this. Here's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this is interesting. If I do it again, it goes to the next memory level. And I'll explain these memory levels. Some other pistons you may or may not use. Swell to grate. This is a way to turn the swell to grate on just with this piston. Do you see how that turned it on? And instead of having to reach. Once again, these red ones are going to be these orchestral sounds. Your chimes, I've got chimes sitting here for you. But there's also a chimes piston on the grate manual. Okay? The bass, who doesn't play pedals? Who prefers not to? Okay. Then what, I'll see if I set this yet for you. Okay. I'm going to set the bass for you on memory level 2. So when you come to the organ, when you turn the organ on, it's on memory 1, ready to go. If you don't want to play pedals, you need to change this to level 2, and I'll explain what that means. When you turn the organ on and you're on memory level 1, this whole organ is, you've got 10 general pistons, you've got these divisionals. If I move to memory 2 by pressing this plus here, the number is going to change to 2. We're in memory level 2. This is an entirely new organ. Completely different. But what I'll do for you, I'll make it just like memory 1, but it'll have the pedals so you don't have to play them. And the way that works is, so let's say on this, when this is lighted, this one that says bass, I'll save that for you. I'll do these fast, bass, 8. I had accidentally saved those on memory 1. Okay. So the way that works is the bass takes anything that is set in the pedals and makes it sound in the bottom pitch that you're playing. You play on the grate manual. So when you're playing your hymn, if this weren't on and I played this like this without playing my feet, don't do that. No. That's what that bass. No. No. So it's going to sound like you're playing your pedals. Yes. All right. So that's the bass. This says melody swell. And what that does, let's go back to that number 1 that I have. I'm going to return to memory 1. And right here, you can go up with the plus, M plus. You can go down with the M minus. But let's say you've way up in another memory level. You want to quickly get back to memory 1. Right here, it says memory 1. That's jumping from 9 to 1. I'm going to go back to this one. Now, if I put on this one that says melody swell, it's the reverse of that pedal thing. It takes anything that you have on a swell manual and puts it on your top pitch here. So when that's off, it sounds like this. If I turn it on, it's going to take those sounds to my top pitch. If I put the bass on, it's going to take what I've got in my pedal pretty cool. So you could read something and it takes that melody and brings it to your top pitch. That's what those are. Melody choir does the same thing. Takes anything from the choir division, brings it to the grate. Way over here, this will be a story. This says full organ, which on some organs is called tutti. If you light that up, okay, well, at least they light up. Because when I was a kid, the pipe organ in Grafton, I was in 5th grade and I could play piano, could not play organ. Father came out and said, "We don't have an organist today." And my father said, "Go play."
Weird.
Good for my yeah. I got to the organ and I figured out how to turn it on, and then there's this thing that says tutti. So I put on the thing that says tutti. Tutti's the same thing as full organ. So I played my first chord. It was like, it was just it was terrible, terrible. So the full organ, once again, this is going to be huge. I'd say don't use it too often. Okay, or ever. All right. Under here, set. We will assign you your own memory levels. What I'm going to encourage you to do is when you come to the organ, memory 1, don't change anything. Unless you discuss it with everybody and say, you know, we don't like what Peggy did here, let's change this.
Is memory level 1 locked? Or is it house?
I could lock it. We could lock it.
I'm just concerned that, it was very easy for you to accidentally set one that was...
I was on memory level. Yeah.
Those of us that are just trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
how easy it might be to think we're in level 2 and then
Well,
we accidentally implemented.
yes. You won't be as reckless as I was. I was in such a hurry. We can lock it. Well, let's just say regardless. Memory 1 will be for everybody to use. And this is a discussion I'd really like you to have with each other. And with Father involved is, how do you feel as the leaders of music in your parish about what's going to help them to sing the best?